Welcome to another Hoops and Dreams preview show. My name is Brian Fisher, and let's start by reviewing the Boxing Day clash, Swansea against QPR. And let me start by providing a short overview before handing over to George for his thoughts, because I know he was there. The R's had a long unbeaten run of 7 games, enjoyed hugely by us fans, of course, and there were hopes of beating the Boxing Day curse. But injuries continued to prevent Marty Cifuentes from fielding his best starting 11. This time we were without the influential Steve Cook and Liam Morrison, so both our first choice centre-backs were unavailable. Whilst up front there was still no Frey or Seller. So up against Swansea we lined up along the lines of, well not it wasn't along the lines of, it was Nardi, Dunn, Clark Salter, filling in probably earlier than he expected, Fox, Parle, and then in the midfield we had Varane and Field fronted by Morgan, and on the wings we had Smith and Sato, and in the middle Coley as the striker. Now our goal scoring has improved of late, and goals did arrive, but sadly in the wrong net. They came in the 12th minute, 28th minute and 33rd minute. So the R's were really 3-0 down almost within half an hour. That final result was kept to 3-0, which I guess is some sort of consolation, I suppose, George?
Yeah, I guess you could say that in some ways. I guess you could say that. It could have been much more, to be honest. And yeah, I was one of the 543 there. And to be honest, I didn't really leave my bed much before Boxing Day because I've been a bit rough, and I kind of wish I didn't. But no, it was I think from the first 2 minutes of the game, quite a lot of the crowd had just a sense of how it was going to be like, and that was almost just a matter of time before they scored. I think we set out completely wrong. We almost tried to play in our similar low block that we try and do away from home sometimes. I think we saw it most prolifically away at Burnley this year. Um, but we just gave a team who were masters at passing the ball too much respect. I think they had a 94% pass accuracy in the end, which is just ridiculous. 731 passes in a game of football. And I think it was just a matter of time. It was once again the case of the defence seemed unbalanced. I think Jake Clark-Salter wasn't too comfortable on that right-hand side, and it was almost like we were coming up against a high-press team, and we had no alternative because up front we had no hold-up players, and that's because Frey might not be fully fit to start, and obviously Seller had surgery. So it's like once again injuries have come to somewhat bite us on the backside. But I think it was just you said it really. It was lucky to be 3-0. I think second half they kind of took their foot off the pedal a little bit. The game died off, and I can't think of a single player for us who had a good performance or even an average performance. I think there was a few of them who just, I don't know, they just went through the motions, and I think it was a typical QPR away game on Boxing Day, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, we we had injuries to Smith, sadly, and yellow cards for Paul, Varane, and Morgan. Um, so that was all equally not particularly good for us. I don't know if Smith's going to be okay. Let's hope so. Anyway, do you think the replacement of Sato, Parle, and Morgan by Chair, Ashby, and Madsen at halftime was another reason for perhaps for stemming the onslaught, George?
I think that, as I said, I think second half they just came out and thought that they had the game won, and they've got a game on
They
Sunday
did.
as yeah, they've got a game on Sunday as well. So yeah, they maybe went into preservatives, but I think that the setup from the start was just wrong in terms of the players as well. I think you could potentially look at Marty and think you should have rotated the squad a little bit because I know it's been a period of time since Preston, but you need to, I think, especially away from home, setting up with the likes of Morgan and Collies, like you might not have much choice, but they're development squad players at the end of the day, and I think they're much more suited to at home. And who knows how late they knew about the Morrison injury situation? For all we know, they could have known straight after Preston, or it could have been the training the day before. So, as you rightfully said, I don't think Clark Sort was really expecting to play there, and you could tell he just doesn't seem comfortable playing out on that right foot, and he was trying his best not to. Um, so I think in terms of player selection wise, I just don't think it was right. I would have personally started Chair that game. I can see what Marty was trying to do because with Smith and Saito, they kind of really are only pace. Well, especially Smith, Sato's not that quick, but particularly our pace outlets. So they're trying to hit him on the counter attack, something Swansea have been known to being quite concede quite a few goals to. So I can see what he was trying to do. I don't know. I don't think it was right from the start.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, looking at the goals, it looked to me as if it was very much like Middlesbrough. We were being overwhelmed by the sheer numbers coming through, and we didn't have an answer to it. It's as you say. I mean, we're trying to defend, but we're defending the impossible in a lot of ways. Okay, well, the R's replaced Coley with Frey on the 67th minute as he continued his move towards total match fitness. And although you have to consider that it's more one of giving Frey, as I say, that greater match time, and Smith being replaced by Anderson when he was injured in the 84th minute. But those changes, they must have been useful because we I know we didn't score, but at least we held up the opposition a bit on this one. I know you're going to turn around and say, well, no, Swansea had done the job by then. They were already in bed, tucked up. But I think that surely those changes must have made a difference.
No, I think there was a period of time, I think it was for about maybe max 10, 15 minutes in the second half where we created a few chances, but the players showed a bit of energy, like Madsen was showing a bit of press, Chair was showing a bit of press, and you can
Sure.
just tell that Marty kind of ripped into them at half time. But I think after that, it was just, as I've said, I think they just killed the game out. And I think, yeah, Frey, I would have given him more minutes, but who knows what his fitness situation is like. I think Holly's done well since he's come into the squad. Obviously, got 3 goals and but very, very good amount of goal contributions. But I still don't think he's an out and out striker. So I think, especially away from home against a team who you might want to play a little bit longer against, it was never going to work. So. I don't know. I think apart from that 10, 15 minute spell, there really wasn't much.
Yeah, I do get that impression, I must admit.
And that's
Uh,
clutching at straws, 10, 15 minute.
well, I'll ask you to clutch a few more straws. You've already mentioned that perhaps Marty didn't have much choice on this, but is there anybody else that he could have put in there instead? Because to me they looked a bit leggy, and maybe that's no great surprise. They've worked really, really hard in the last 7 games to keep that unbeaten record. Um, is there anyone else available? Come to that.
I don't know because Ashby he weren't involved at all in the Preston game, was he? I don't think he was even in the squad. So once again, that could have just been a little niggle injury or something like that. So we're not fully sure how his fitness situation was like. And I was expecting Chair to start against Swansea. I thought he got a little bit of minutes against Preston. Obviously, got the assist for that winning goal, and I thought it was all lined up for him to start against Swansea. But obviously, he didn't, and. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think Saito he's starting to feel the effects potentially of so many games across the Christmas period because it's not his fault, but he's used to playing in a league where they don't play this many games around Christmas. So um, I don't know. His hands are a bit tired at the moment, and it has been for quite a lot of this season because of injuries. But I do think there's a couple of things he could have done differently. Maybe starting Chair, and then potentially even Madsen ahead of Morgan because I know Madsen isn't the sort of one to press after the ball too much, but at least it gives you that a bit of height and presence to kick it up there if you need to. So
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I mean, I even considered the idea about having a back five. Uh, anyway, let's move on. Um, as I mentioned before, the R's have a great run of unbeaten matches over the pre-Christmas period. They've not lost against top sides such as Watford and of course Norwich, and the hope that was that this would carry on through the festive season and then into 2025. In a way, this has been a bit of a reality check for us, I think. Um, Past performances have been framed by far better defending and by decent attacking play. That said, there have also been halves where QPR has reverted to poor defending and teamwork. So we still are the unfinished product, I think, really. And the game against Swansea was certainly a question of a disastrous first half. No getting away from that. In addition, we have relinquished possession in the past, whilst reasonably confident that we would survive any attacks by organising our defence sufficiently and threatening with the breakaway attacks. Nothing like that happened at Swansea, sadly. You were talking about the possession. I think the overall possession at the end was 71% for Swansea and 29 for us. It's not going to do very much with that unless we get breakaway goals. They had 10 shots on target. We only had four. Sorry, 10 shots, and we had four. And on target, they had eight. We had none, absolutely none. Um, I could go on and on. I mean, they had corners, we had corners. We didn't get anything out of them. I mean, if we had three corners, if we'd got three goals from that, it would have changed the dimension of the game considerably. Uh, yeah, I don't think we want to dwell too much on this, do we? I mean, what are your feelings about the those stats? Anything that we can garner from that will give us any happiness?
Well, I think I'll give you one that well, just kind of shallows the mood at the moment, really. I think first half, I did have a look at the possession stats at half time, and it was 85% towards them. So it does show that we picked up a bit of possession in the second half,
We did. Yeah.
which you could say is a bit of a positive. But you're never gonna compete in a game of football if you're giving a team 85% possession for half a game, and it's just we didn't register a single shot on target, as you said. I just can't. I couldn't believe it. I think it was kind of threatening in some ways because you looked at it, Bristol City away, the first half was dire. Even Oxford at home, the first half was absolutely awful. I know we came away and won that game 2-0, but that was just down to the second half performance. So I think it was perhaps coming because there's just been a few games this year where we've been off it, especially in the first 45 minutes, and that teams could any team with decent finishing or decent play to cut through us could have finished it, and I think Swansea showed that. So
Yeah, I agree, and I think it comes down in a lot of ways to the fact that if the ball is going to be hoofed up front, out of desperation, you do need people up there who are creative with it and can hold up the ball, and that is not Coley, and that is not Morgan. I don't think at the moment. So it was not good. Let's put it down to a bad day at the office. Um, I'm going to mention this quickly though, and you can laugh at it if you like. Player of the match for you, George?
honestly, it's really tough, but I don't know. I think Varane did all right second half. Is it just same old? He got stuck into challenges. I know he got a yellow card, but I don't know. I thought Varane did all right, but I don't know. I really couldn't give it to anyone if I'm being honest.
Be interesting to see what the other media make of this. Okay, that loss against Swansea leaves QPR sitting in 16th place in the table with 25 points only. We've had a good run of form up until then, George. So is this just a bump on the road or indicative of something more worrying?
Well, fingers crossed it's just a bump in the road because before then we were looking like a team who'd turned the corner and we're on a real up, I think. We're a team who even despite not having the best performances managed to pick up some points, more specifically Bristol City away. And we had some really good second halves and full games. Like you look at Preston, I think second half was perhaps the best that we played this year. I think that we looked really up for it. The complete opposite at Swansea. So fingers crossed it's just a bump in the road. I know that Norwich is not going to be an easy game at all. I think it's going to be extremely difficult, tougher than it was at home. Um, and we'll preview that in a minute. But it's just hopefully it's just a bump in the road. We look like a team who we shouldn't. I don't think we'll be down there in the relegation fight. I think we'll finish comfortably mid-table. I think the last few games before Swansea has shown that. So. I'm not too worried. I'm just hoping it was a blip.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's a neat segue into our previewing of Norwich against QPR. This is the return fixture, and I'm sure both sets of fans remember Norwich lost this 3-0. It seemed the Norwich side we all expected to encounter didn't turn up for that one. It would be really surprising if the Canaries and their fans were not looking for redress. Head to head since Boxing Day, funny enough, 2011, we've met 19 times in all competitions, with Norwich winning 9 times, QPR winning only 3 times, and they were all home wins, I might add. And that means there were 7 draws. So, George, as you know, we won't make any predictions till the end of the podcast, but any thoughts on these stats and your own checks on their form, George?
I think they're a team who we didn't really see a fair reflection of them at home. I think we played the conditions better. I remember we swapped it the coin toss before the game even.
Yeah,
Sorry. And they really just didn't deal with the conditions well. I think especially their keeper Gunn just really didn't deal with it. They couldn't play out from the back, and I think the crowd really was on our side that day, and I think it was just written that we were going to win that game. They're a dangerous team. I remember last time we played them, I was given the stat of they Borgia Science has scored the same amount of goals as our team as a whole. I don't think that's the same anymore because we picked up form, but no, that was just a really worrying stat when we played them at home, and I think away from home it would just be much tougher. They're a team who score a lot of goals. I don't think they're the best defensively, but going forward they have a lot of players who are extremely dangerous, especially Science, as I said. I know at home he didn't look too much, but in front of the Norwich fans, I think he'll be a better player. They're actually third in the league for goals per match, so I think it'll be a much tougher game. At Carrow Road than it was at Loftus Road, and we haven't won away there for God knows how many years. So, just another QPR stat, isn't it? So, all going for us at this rate.
Yeah, we have to hope that these stats are just going to be proven wrong. Despite Norwich's abject performance against us at Loftus Road just a few weeks ago, this is still another top side that the R's are up against. Because of their recent match, both sides know each other well. Whether losing so convincingly to us or our poor performance at Swansea will play a major part, who really knows? I do feel that the continued absence of Steve Cook will be felt, and I only hope that Morrison is back alongside Clark Salter for this one. Talking of which, any thoughts on the starting 11, George?
I think after that Swansea game, I think you have got to change it. I think Marty went through a bit of a spell of don't change the winning side, but I think especially now with the injuries of Morrison and Cook, because I think Marty said in the interview after the game that Morrison's going to be out for a few weeks, which is quite disappointing. And obviously Cook with his foot injury, which really is quite worrying. I think he was one of the players who I just really didn't want added to that injury list because the leadership he shows, I think he's just the most important player in our team. I'll say that bluntly, and it's a big statement. I think he is. But no, in terms of team news, I don't know. It's really tough as to what to say. I don't want to go into that Norwich game starting with Jake Clark-Salter at right centre back again. So whether that's he moves Phil back into centre back and changes up the midfield, whether he puts Dunn at centre back, even though it's looked unbalanced at points with him. I think it'd be foolish not to start with Chair, and I think he will start with Chair. I think he'll give Saito a rest. I don't think Morgan will play. I reckon Madsen will start, and I think he might start Collie from the bench as well. It depends on Smith's injury really. If Smith's fit to play, then I can see him starting because he's the only real one with a lot of pace for us at the moment. He's kind of an outlet ball at times. But I'd like to see Frey start against Norwich because he just gives you that bit of presence up front. So that's what I'd like to see with a team. It's just really the defence that needs to be sorted because it can really just be unbalanced at times, and then it's just kind of shooting yourself in the foot before it even starts. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If Morrison, I don't know why I'm doing it. If Morrison is fit, then really, as far as that goes, I would play him because he is just superb. If he's not, then I would. I think it's got to be Dunn who moves back in there, and you bring Ashby in on the right, and see how that goes. And I agree with you about replacing Morgan with Madsen. He's done tremendous work there in the middle, but he is a development player, and he is struggling. I'm sure to do all this amount of match time. And I also agree if Smith is fit, you've got to play him, and I would put Chair in the middle as well. We need that creativity there. I think it's important to have that. And I would put Frey up front as well. Absolutely start with Frey, 100%. Okay, right. 2024 is about to end. So it seems a good time to talk about the January transfer window, which runs from 1st of January to the 3rd of February, if you didn't know, and the R's possible involvement in it. George, you expect the club to go shopping at all? And if so, what areas will they be looking to fill?
I think that it isn't a case of whether we will. I think we need to. I know I said earlier that we're not going to be a side who threaten too much of relegation, but who knows what injuries could happen at QPR? And we're quite a few players are coming back from it, but they could easily go out and get injured again. So I think signings, loans do need to be made. I don't think they'll make too many. I think we need a left back. Um, I think at times this year, Powell, well, obviously Powell's been injured at points, but sometimes he just looked a bit complacent in that role, as if, oh, no one's behind me. I can play on my own accord here. I think Ashby, he's done well sometimes when he's fielding at left back, but you can tell that he's not naturally meant to play there. He always does that touch inside with his right foot, and it just takes us into danger. So I think left back's a big priority, and I think we need at least one more striker. I think with Sellers' injury, I think at the start of the year going into a season with two strikers is criminal anyway. And I think anyone who's listened to any of my stuff knows that because every single year I say the same thing of going into a season with two strikers is absolutely criminal. And I know this you have to show some reliance towards your academy strikers, but Colley's not a natural striker, and I don't think Lloyd's good enough for the Championship at the moment. So I don't really know what academy strikers are talking about. So I'd like to see potentially a Premier League striker in on loan, but if we're if we are going to make signings, I would kind of like them to be players who have played in the Championship before, because I don't think we can afford to have that settling in period again. Because you look at even with Varane, who's seeming like one of our better players at the moment, he took a good few games. He took that red card at Blackburn to
Good. Yeah.
yeah, it took that red card at Blackburn to settle in. So I think I'd like to see some players with some championship experience come in.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that we brought in Seller as an additional striker, and then he went through a long drought in scoring. Before he scored, they also chose not to bring in a free agent during that time. So finally, Seller does score, and they were good goals too. Plus, looking more threatening before he was injured. Then we have Frey and Chair returning to full match fitness, hopefully soon, and sharpness, equally soon. And Coley and Lloyd continuing to impress. Um, and then ensure to me that they're not going to go for another striker, Christian Nori said in his festive message that they weren't, or indicated that they weren't really looking for another striker in January. He was happy with the development. So you have to take it that we're not going to get one, or if we do, it'll be a youngster that we're going to get for next year. That said, I do feel they must be acutely aware that we've struggled to fill Powell's boots, as you said, when he was unavailable. Ashby has filled in really well, but he gets turned too easily. It's a shame. But Noria suggested that we're exposed there as well. He did mention that as well in the same message. So I think they'll be looking for another left back. And then if we turn to the centre back role, we've had the welcome return of Jake Clark-Salter, of course, but we then lost Cook and possibly Morrison, by the way, things are going. So even as a temporary fix, we need a plug in there. So I don't know. I just hope that they do go out and do a bit of decent shopping. And as you say, it's got to be somebody who can come in there and start straight away, which is asking a lot, really. It really is. But let's go with that and hope that it happens. We'll know very shortly. I'm sure they'll be busy right from the go on the 1st of January. Right, so it's prediction time, George. What's your prediction for Sunday's match against Norwich at 12:30?
See, I think on every single one of these, I've been incredibly positive, and I've predicted us to win. However, I think for once, I'm just going to take a little turn on this. I just think it's one of them games where I think their fans will be incredibly up for it. Um, I think because McLean obviously got a ban against us, and then Gunn got a fine. I don't know. I think they've shown a lot of reaction on social media, and especially after that Swansea performance, I don't think it's the greatest place to then go. So I'm going to predict a. I'm going for a 2-1 loss at Norwich, but hopefully I'm proven wrong.
Okay, well, I'd love to sort of be more optimistic, but I'm going for a narrow away defeat as well. I wouldn't be too surprised though if we even drew. I just don't know with QPR how we're going to go. It's so unpredictable, and it's the fun of being an Ars fan, I suppose. Okay, our time is up, so can I end by mentioning that James and Dave will be previewing the New Year's Day fixture, which is Watford at home. Thank you all for watching, and my thanks as always to George. And from both George and myself, may we wish you all a hoopy new year. And as always, come on, you Rs.
Come on, you ask.